So this year seems to have been pretty rough with theme parks. Six Flags has been a mess, Cedar Fair is expanding chaperone policies across all of their parks, and most parks just haven't been up to their normal standards with employee shortages across the country. Six Flags has been especially bad this year. Now, I've only visited over Georgia, but based off what I've heard, all of the parks, except for Fiesta Texas, have been doing pretty bad this season. Now, let's go over the big problem, the guest experience. Out of my 3 visits, 2 of them have been very disappointing. And one of them was opening day. On opening day, several rides were closed, including Goliath, their headlining coaster, Great American Scream Machine, and at least while I was at the park. And the park was pretty busy too. Operations were very poor, sometimes taking up to 6 to 7 minutes, and overall it was just a bad experience. On my second visit to Over Georgia this season, Goliath was on one train, while there was still over an hour wait. Superman was closed, and once again, abysmal operations. And I've heard of way worse experiences. Apparently on April 1st, they were doing especially bad. I heard at one point there were 6 coasters broken down, once again on a busy Saturday during spring break. And many of the people who had visited the park while they were down to ride Air Force One, which we'll get to in a second, just went back to Fun Spot. My point is, Six Flags just hasn't been doing very well this year. Now, Fun Spot, on the other hand, has been doing great. They just opened their biggest and best coaster, Air Force One, and they're changing many people's minds on the best park in Georgia. They've been pretty busy for what they're used to, and as far as I know, they have been pretty good with keeping the rides open, or at least the major rides. Maybe there might have been like 1 or 2 of the family rides, and obviously Spider, which is down because they're refurbishing it. But for the most part, they've been doing pretty good with keeping the rides open. Not to mention the staff are amazing. Easily the best theme park employees from any of the parks I've experienced. And most people would say it's Disney, but they're required to be super nice. Fun Spot employees aren't, or at least not to the Disney standards. The chances of you going to any Fun Spot park and not running into a super helpful and friendly employee is almost 0. Most of the Fun Spot employees seem to be very passionate about the parks and truly want you to have a great day. Fun Spot Atlanta has been run so well these past few months, and Six Flags has not. I know people that live in Atlanta, and some of them aren't even renewing their Six Flags pass because they know that they'd just rather go to Fun Spot. Now, you might be wondering what I'm trying to compare the Six Flags now to, and I'm simply comparing it to last season, the 2022 season. I visited 2 different Six Flags parks last year, Magic Mountain and Over Georgia, and I visited Over Georgia around 15 times, so I think I got a pretty good feel for the park, and it was amazing. They usually would have most of the rides open, and most of those visits occurred on a weekday during summer, compared to my 2023 visits on 2 Saturdays and a Thursday during spring break, which is one of the busiest weeks of the year. All of those days would be way busier than just a Thursday during summer, so what gives? Like, they should definitely be running better on a peak day in the spring than a non-peak day in the summer. Last year, the operations were mostly great. It wasn't too uncommon for them to roll trains, at least for a cycle or 2. They almost always ran 2 trains on everything, even when they definitely did not need to. And overall, every single experience was just a stress-free visit to an amusement park, which is the way it should be, unlike it's been now, which, speaking of stress, this is what made my visit stressful. The new policy where you can't have your backpack in line for Twisted Cyclone. Sometimes. And if you can't take it in line, you have to pay for a locker, which may or may not be broken, but not actually tell you. So you swipe your credit card several times because it says there's a fault and that you need to reswipe it, but it actually is charging you. So then you have to go wait in the 45-minute long, painfully slow line to go get a refund at guest services for those $20 you unknowingly spent. Then you have to go ask someone to go fix the lockers just for you to now get in line without your stuff. Wait for 30 minutes in the super slow line because of the 5-minute dispatches, which if you just walked in with your backpack would have been a walk-on, but now because you've waited so long, the line has now become a 45-minute line, and once you arrive in the station, guess what you see? Backpacks lined up against the wall, meaning that if the gate attendant just simply did not care or wasn't there or wasn't paying attention, you would have been able to bring your bag on with a walk-on, and none of that would have happened, and you would have been able to ride Twisted Cyclone an hour and a half earlier. Oh, and if you do manage to get your bag in line, the game's not over yet, because you still risk being told to put your bag in a locker after you've waited and are about to board, forcing a member of your group that waited in line with the intention to ride to now stand holding everyone's bags. And yes, all this happened to me during my first 2 visits to Six Flags. Meanwhile, at Fun Spot, wait absolutely no time just to put your bag in a cubby, then get in the train to end up riding a much better ride, when the park ticket is cheaper anyway. And parking is free. And if someone doesn't want to ride, they don't pay anything. They can just enter the park for free. And you can pay for individual rides if you want to. And there's less walking. See, this is why everyone prefers FunSpot. Six Flags could easily do better. They have the rides too, but it's not all about the rides. It's also about the guest experience, and FunSpot is just miles ahead. Even if I just went back to my visits last year, Six Flags would be the better park. I mean, I already had it above parks like Carowinds, but now not so much. And I get it, staffing could play a role on why several of the rides were closed, and I know that Goliath and Acrophobia were closed because of a missing part, but running one train or having terrible operations on well-staffed rides, that's not a staffing problem, that's a training problem. Six Flags seriously needs to improve their operations, and you know what? That may just be what they're doing. Since spring break, they've seemed to be doing better. From what I've seen, people who visit Six Flags seem to be having a better time, and when I visited on that Thursday in spring break, I didn't find the operations to be too bad. I did notice significantly better operations on Twisted Cyclone. They came close to rolling trains at some points, and it only took about 30 minutes to go through an entire queue, which is about a 25% improvement from my previous visits. And I will give them credit. The employees have been better recently. They've seemed to just be happy, not overly helpful, although we have run into some really nice people, like the guy that fixed the lockers for us, but that's all I really ask is for the employees to not seem depressed or sad, because we have run into a few of those in the past. And it's great if they go above and beyond like FunSpot, where they can really like impact your day. But as long as they just make the park not seem so gloomy and instead are just in a good mood, then that's all I really ask, because employees at a park can really play a role at how your day is. And in the end, my problem with Six Flags isn't that they're not adding many rides, which actually might be changing within the next few years. But my problem is that it's been hard to have a good time, especially when you're stuck overpaying $125 for a season pass, and what you get is abysmal operations, depressed employees, and many other inconveniences, when you could just go to another park that's 20 minutes away and all of those issues go away, or at least most of them, because FunSpot doesn't really have the best operations, but there's never any lines, so I don't really care, because in the end, it's not all about the rides. And with all that said, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and to have a thrilling rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.